Thanks for joining us. And today we're going to talk about Kriya Yoga and Samadhi. So Samadhi is one of the most coveted states in Kriya Yoga and other yogic paths, and Samadhi is often talked about as super consciousness. And in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Samadhi is the pinnacle, if you will, of yogic development. And so there have been stories about people who've been in Samadhi. Some people have related their experiences. One of the most famous ones was Yogananda in his autobiography of a yogi. He talked about his first Samadhi experience that was helped supposedly by his guru, this sort of super conscious experience of having this spherical vision, this expansion of consciousness, and this merging with the bliss, ananda, of the divine. And certainly that has inspired many folks to get into Kriya Yoga, who want to have that experience. And because Samadhi is a much coveted state, there's even these subdivisions of Samadhi. So you can have a Samadhi where you notice a difference between yourself and your superconscious experience, and one where you have no difference between yourself and the superconscious experience. Even in Kriya Yoga and other yogic paths, they talk about Nirvikalpa Samadhi, right? And this is not limited to Kriya Yoga, but the recognition that some folks may be able to sustain that Samadhi experience through their waking consciousness, if you will, through their everyday consciousness, and be in this constant state of union with the divine. So much coveted. But we know from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras that you need to go through a series of stages to get to Samadhi. And so in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the 8 limbs of the Ashtanga wheel, and according to Patanjali, you start with yama and niyama, which is the moral do's and don'ts. And these moral do's and don'ts are there to help provide the student with a ideal to try to internalize, to try to replicate in their lives, so that they get into some kind of balance and harmony. Because if they're involved in debaucherous behavior or harmful behavior to other people, there's an effect on themselves, right? So it will affect the student's sadhana. And so there's a recognition in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and in yoga in general that you want to begin by building your moral character to some degree. The next stage in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is asana, and asana is having a comfortable posture or pose for meditation. And often, people will go into some sort of more strenuous poses like Padmasana, the lotus pose, or the Siddhasana, which is sort of a half type of lotus pose. And those can be helpful for some folks, but it's not necessary to be in such a strenuous posture. You just want to be in a comfortable posture. So I've given various pointers for one's asana, which, from my perspective, you want to be in a neutral alignment in your spine. And that normally means that your knees are below your hips. Not everyone, because some folks have quite flexibility in their hips, the way their structure of their hips are, so it allows them to sit cross-legged or to sit in half lotus or lotus and meditate very comfortably. But the most important thing is that your spine needs to be in a neutral alignment so that you can go into a meditative state. And so the next stage in the journey to Samadhi is doing pranayama. And pranayama is your most common type of meditation technique, right? It uses the conscious control of breath, intentional breathing. And in Kriya Yoga, it uses a particular type of intentional breathing called Kriya pranayama. And we know when looking at Kriya pranayama that basically what it does by changing the way that you're breathing, making it slow and intentional, it stimulates or activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to do things like slowing down your heart rate, right? You're slowing down your breath rate, slowing down your heart rate, and you do other techniques as well that actually bring your blood pressure down, and then you get into this sense withdrawal, which is the next phase of the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras called pratyahara, right? Internalization. And when you start to experience internalization, which is really like the beginnings of meditation, if you will, the beginnings of feeling the effects of meditation, you will experience often the galvanic skin response, right? Which we call the freeze response. Pratyahara, hands are hot and heavy, or pulsation in your lower lip, tingling up and down your spine, tingling throughout your body. These are all signs that your parasympathetic nervous system is becoming predominant and you're going into deep meditation. And what happens from there is that you will start to, through other Kriya Yoga practices, your breath starts to change, right? So after you've been doing your pranayama, your intentional breathing, and slowing down your body to a low idle state, and then just relaxing and letting go, your breath will start to naturally change. And it changes to this thing that Lahiri Baba, Lahiri Mahashai, called the tranquil breath, right? Where the breath shallows out and then it just disappears. This has also been called the breathless state, and it is a recognition that you are hardly breathing at all, and you become very, very still inside, and you get very internalized, right? You might get a very strong freeze response so that you don't even feel that your body is there. It may feel like a shadow, it may feel like a shell. You just don't feel yourself, right? But you feel good and you're internalized, right? When you get very internalized and you kind of lose the perception of your body, you get into this state called dharana, which is concentration. And really what it is a concentration on an internalized void, so a blackness, a darkness inside, where you're not aware of anything other than just being there, like pure awareness, if you will, right? And from there, things start to manifest in meditation. So if you're able to let go, and that's the point, often people will get into dharana and they're trying to concentrate on something, right? They're like, what is it? Like, I'm here, I'm calm, I can think or not, I'm aware and I'm present, but it's just sort of this void, right? Like there's nothing happening here. To get into deeper states of meditation, you need to become absorbed in what you're experiencing, right? So it's like things come out of the void, if you will, or you experience things within the void and you become very absorbed in them, which is the next stage of the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras called dhyan, right? To become absorbed. And so some of the things that you become absorbed in might be a conception of the divine, right? It could be, as I said, Divine Mother. It could be Krishna, Vishnu. It could be Christ, right? Or Jesus, right? Whatever it is, one becomes absorbed in that concept or that sensation, feeling, or presence, or whatever it is. It could be peace. It could be love. And when you become so absorbed that the boundary between you and the thing that you're absorbed in, when that boundary disappears and you become that thing, that perception, that is samadhi, right? And there's various kind of, as I said, different states of samadhi, but becoming absorbed to the point where you become that thing, that is samadhi. So some people have had that, with feeling a universal love or peace or stillness or, other curious things. It could be some kind of, force, right? It doesn't have to have a religious connotation. It could just be utter stillness, right? The so still, and then you have that unbounded perception of the stillness where you cannot distinguish between yourself and that perception. That is a samadhi, right? But you need to go through those stages to get to samadhi. And so often people will ask me, students will ask me, like, how do I get there, right? It's really about putting the work in at the beginning, right? It's about making sure that your asana is in a way correct to support you in your sadhana, is going to give you support through the process, that you don't feel like you're fidgety, right? And then when you do your pranayama, you want to be doing it slow, right? So the way that we teach Kriya Yoga at Modern Kriya, we do it in the Panchanambhadacharya lineage, and it's slow intentional breathing that we're doing in and out through our nose, right? And so we teach a distilled version of this called heart rate variability resonance breathing. It comes from Kriya Yoga, and it's pretty effective. It's not as effective as Kriya Pranayama, but it is pretty good for people who are starting out with meditation or even experienced meditators. It is often very revolutionary because it directly impacts and stimulates and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, right? Directly. And then you start to feel, oh my God, I'm going into a meditative state, right? Which is great because it actually works. So if you're doing your Kriya Pranayama, you want to make sure that you're doing it nice and slow, that you're not holding the breath between the inhale and the exhale or the exhale and the inhale, right? So that's often a common mistake that is taught in some Kriya Yoga schools where they actually are holding the breath while they're doing the Kriya Pranayama. You don't want to do that. You can do breath holds later, right? You do breath holds when you're doing things like kumbhaka that is not part of Kriya Pranayama. It's like an icing on the cake, if you will, to shift you into a deeper kind of yogic breathing. But initially, you just want that slow breath, right? That slow and steady breath. And so with heart rate variability resonance breathing, we say breathing at 7 breaths per minute or less will get you into heart rate variability, right? So you're using a technique that has extreme leverage in bringing you into an internalized state, which is the whole point of meditation to begin with, right? So you want to pay attention to the way that you're doing your Kriya Pranayama. So if you're already doing Kriya Yoga, you're doing heart rate variability resonance breathing, or some kind of yogic type breathing to get into meditation, if you're not getting into Pratyahara relatively quickly, and I say 5 minutes or less, right? If you're not experiencing signs of being internalized, then your pranayama practice is not as effective as it could be. And so if you're doing Kriya Yoga already, you can use those pointers to help to sort of tweak your Kriya to get a more powerful Kriya so that you get internalized quickly. You don't want to be spending 10 years trying to get internalized, right? Where the rubber hits the road is that you have a technique that allows you to get internalized. And when you become internalized, then you can use your internal devotion. That is the time to do it. It's not while you're doing the Kriya Pranayama in absence of an effective technique. So if you don't do Kriya Yoga and you're wondering what that is, check out our videos on heart rate variability resonance breathing. There are some guided meditations in there that will quickly get you into an internalized state with having no background in Kriya Yoga whatsoever. So you can get that. And also, if you already do Kriya Yoga, you can check out those videos and see, okay, what's going on here? You experiment and see, oh, wait a minute, is something actually happening here? Oh, something is happening, and it's happening quick. Maybe I want to take that knowledge and use it for my own practice, right? So something I definitely recommend. For many people, the goal is Samadhi, right? And that is totally fine. It's a great goal to have, but you can't get there unless you have an effective practice to get there. So if you're not getting results into Pratyahara in 5 minutes or so, or maybe 10 minutes, think about the way you're doing your practice. Try to learn from some of the things that we're sharing on this channel so that you can actually become more informed about the way you do Kriya Yoga. So have an open mind, explore some things, right? Because that's the way that we learn, right? It's not by repeating the same stuff over and over and over, expecting to get a different result. It is by looking at what we're doing in a different way and saying, okay, I've been doing it this way, thinking that things were like this. I have a set of assumptions about this, the way that this works, and maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I didn't understand the teachings that were given to me by my guru. Maybe I didn't understand it because I'm not getting results. So what's the fault of that, right? It's not saying that your particular lineage is bad or anything. All it is saying, okay, your practice, it's yours. It isn't anybody else's. It isn't your guru's, right? It isn't your teacher. It isn't God's. It is your practice. And you're the one who has to do it, right? You're the one responsible for the results, nobody else. Teachers in the past were not perfect. You know, it's often acknowledged that Panchanan Bhattacharya took Kriya Yoga farther than Lahiri Baba did at the particular time, right? He had some innovations in it. And so that doesn't mean that Lahiri Baba wasn't amazing and taught incredible things to so many different types of students, people of different religions and spiritual backgrounds, right? And he gave from his heart, right? And absolutely, we should just have great reverence for him. But that doesn't mean that there can't be improvements going forward, right? People often think that you know, divine realization or spiritual development is static, like the person attains it and there's no more to be done. But that's not true. There's spiritual progress, okay? That's just the way that things work. The universe is evolving. It is not static, it is dynamic. And we too need to be dynamic if we want to have progress in Kriya, if we want to attain the much coveted state of Samadhi. So if you have any questions about this video, feel free to send me an email at info@modernkriya.com. Also check our website at modernkriya.com and our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.